My name is Greg Barnett. So I think the most important thing to understand about my story is that I am honestly one of the happiest people that I know, regardless of anything that's happened in my life. I just think I have, for whatever reason, I've been blessed with a pretty good perspective on life. And keeping that perspective is just really helpful in maintaining my level of happiness and just contentment with life in general. I know a lot of my friends can say, "Oh, this is the day and the hour that I realized I was gay," but I don't have that. I know it was sometime between 7th and 8th grade, because I can remember before that not necessarily knowing that I was attracted to guys, and after that recognizing that I was. So it was sometime in there, but it was never like a depressing thing for me. It was never something that I felt ashamed about or guilty about. Now I did. That was also right at the time when my family moved to Richfield, Utah, which is a town of about 6,500 people. And growing up in a small rural town like that, it's not exactly something you share with everybody. And so that kind of made it hard, but I don't know that there was ever a sense of shame involved in my life at all. I had great parents that were very loving and accepting. And part of that, I think, comes from the fact that my mom had a brother who was gay for many, many years, and he had a partner. And for as long as I can remember growing up, and then one summer he read the Book of Mormon and decided to come back to church, and now he's married and has a family. So that was pretty inspirational to me as well. But I think because of that, it sort of prepped my parents for the whole experience. So they were very loving and accepting and understanding, and were there for me, whatever I needed, you know. And I also had some pretty good church leadership that was there to kind of love and support and help me through whatever. And so I think it's interesting that I never really had a crisis of faith of any kind. I've always had a very strong testimony. It's never been a question of whether the church was true or whether I should stick with the church. It was always just, that's who I am and that's my life. And I'm very grateful for that. And I think that also has contributed to how happy I am today with myself and my life and the choices that I've made. So I came home after about a year on my mission, but again, that was never an experience where like my testimony was shaken or like I felt that I'd been cheated out of anything. I just thought, I'm grateful for that year that I got. I met some amazing people, had some good experiences, strengthened my testimony, and now it's time to move on with the next phase of life. So I went back to college, and I ended up doing an internship at Disney World. And while I was down there, I was hanging out with a coworker once, and he was giving me a ride home. And just sitting in the car, he sort of started like trying to hold my hand, and it freaked me out because it was the first experience I'd ever had with interaction in that way with another guy. And so I was like freaking out and nervous, and I had this family friend sort of growing up that grew up outside the church. He wasn't ever a member, and he was gay for a lot of years, but then my dad met him when my dad was on his mission. He ended up joining the church and had a family and stuff, so it was good to have a couple of people I could talk to. So I called him up, and I was like freaking out, like, what am I going to do? I don't know. And he basically sort of calmed me down and talked me through it. And he's like, it might be a good idea for you to have a friend that you can talk to. And I was like, what? You want me to tell somebody about this? And I had a pretty good friend there with me at the time. One day we were just hanging out, and I just bit the bullet and told her about it. And I think she was, bless her heart, she was not prepared for that kind of a revelation, but she sort of took it in stride and maybe needed a day or two to kind of process everything. But it was so freeing to have somebody that I could just talk to about it and just be myself and not have to, hide behind anything or try to be something I'm not. Over the years, I've told people, and it's been really good. And recently, I decided that for a couple of different reasons, I decided it was just time to be like completely open about it. So I wrote a blog post just kind of explaining like, I'm gay, but I'm also Mormon, and I'm more of a Mormon, and just kind of explaining where I'm coming from with everything and my experiences a little bit. And I had sort of that moment of like freezing up before I pushed the publish button. And I was like, you know what, this is something I think it needs to happen. I think I need to share my story. So I did it, and just for a couple of hours, I was like, right, I'm not going to look at the computer. I'm just going to go do my thing, not worry about it. And the response was overwhelmingly positive. I didn't have one single person that was negative in any way. I had a couple people that said, hey, you know, I respect your decision and I respect your journey. I don't feel the same way and I've had different experiences, but I hope that things go well for you. And that's about as negative as it got. That even if there are one or two people in your life who don't understand, sometimes they just need a little time. And most people eventually come around and realize, you know what, it doesn't matter. You are who you are and we can love you, and that's what Christ taught. And that's what's important, is that we just love people. And it doesn't matter what choices they make, and we can be disappointed in those choices and we cannot agree with those choices, but we have to set them aside and say the choices don't matter. It's my relationship with the person that matters, and that's the most important thing for me. So those of us in the church who deal with same-sex attraction are sort of part of two different communities, and neither community really knows how to handle us, because in our religious community we're sort of outside the box of Mormonism. And you know, like in Mormonism, it's like you grow up and you get baptized when you're 8, and then you go on a mission when you're 19, and then you get married within 6 months of coming home, and you have 4 kids, and you're a dentist, and that's what you do. And so anything that doesn't really fit that box is sort of like the membership of the church goes, well, I don't know, well, what do we do with you? And I think it's interesting that happens, because we're supposed to be a community that just loves and accepts people, and that's what Christ taught. And so I think that's an interesting thing that happens, and something that can cause a lot of problems in terms of depression and loneliness and all that, because if you're a Mormon and you have problems, then you have this great support system to go to. And if you're gay outside of the church and you're struggling with problems, you have this other great support system to go to. And we don't, for whatever reason, we don't really belong to either one while belonging to both. And so I just think that can be really hard for people. And then you asked me about some of the apprehension that I had posting my blog, and I don't think it was anything more than just because this, for whatever reason, is such a huge thing to share with people, and to share it with the world at large, and just be like, okay, I'm going to do this. And knowing that there are people out there who are hateful and spiteful and who can be negative. It's just sort of a scary thing to do in general, regardless of who you're sharing it with. And so I think that's where the apprehension came from. Is like it's just the unknown. Like how are people going to handle this? I think part of it was like, okay, I know my family's probably going to see this, and my immediate family all knew. My brother and sisters, my mom and dad have known for a long time, and I have a few aunts and uncles who know. But I was like, my grandparents are going to see this, and my grandpa is a very conservative guy, and I love him, but I just wasn't really sure how he would react to something like that. And I also had, people in my ward who I hang out with on a regular basis, and I just, I go, okay, am I still going to have a family after this? Am I still going to have friends? And I think you have those thoughts and you have those feelings regardless of your experience, because, like I said, every friend I'd ever told had been nothing but positive and uplifting and accepting. But you never know when there's going to be that one person who isn't. And I think just the possibility of losing somebody because of that is it's scary. Luckily, that didn't happen, and all the feedback I received from friends and ward members and family members was nothing but loving and nothing but praise for something courageous or sharing something about myself. And that's kind of the reason I set out to do it. I listened to a couple of TED Talks by Brene Brown, and she talks about shame and vulnerability and creativity and integrity and being honest with yourself. And one of the things she said that really struck a chord with me was that that the people who are the happiest in life and who feel the most loved are people who feel like they are deserving of that. And one of the ways you do that is by sharing parts of yourself with people. And you can't be fully loved by somebody until they fully know you. And so I thought, you know what, I think this is a good way to help people, and I think it's a good way for me to be a little more vulnerable and to establish and work on some deeper relationships with people. So that's one of the reasons I decided to go ahead and share my story. And I also hope that, mostly I just hope that people, if they hear my story, know that there are people out there who are happy and who deal with this struggle or trial or whatever it is with a smile, and that it doesn't have to be full of depression and loneliness, and it's not a fight every day. Like it's something that you can live with, and it's something that you can be happy with, and not even happy in spite of, but happy because of even. And so I just think it's important for people to know that. And then one other thing that I talk about on my blog that I think is sort of central to my personal journey and personal discovery is a lot of times when you listen to the gay community, they say you need to be true to yourself. This is who you are. You were born this way, and you need to be true to yourself. And I mentioned in the movie The Incredibles, Syndrome or Incrediboy is talking to Mr. Incredible, and he says, "You always tell us to be true to ourselves, but you never say which part of ourselves to be true to." And I think that's sort of at the essence of what it means to be Christian, what it means to be Mormon, what it means to be a disciple of Christ, is there are so many parts of you, but you need to be true to the most important one. And so before being gay or before being attracted to men, I am so many other things that are so much more important to me. I am a child of God. I'm a disciple of Christ. I am a son, I'm a brother, I'm an uncle, I'm an actor, I'm a teacher. I love brownies. I mean, there are so many other things that are more important to me. And so I think it's important to find out what those parts of yourself are that are important to you. And those are the parts of yourself that you need to be true to. And obviously, sexual or physical attractions or what have you are important. There's a reason we have them, or we wouldn't have them. But I don't think that they need to be the guiding force in your life. And in the case of somebody who's attracted to the same sex and wants to follow Christ, there's something you just kind of have to set aside. And you just have to have the faith that there's a reason for them, and that God has a plan, because he does. And that God loves you. God loves you, period. It's not that he loves you despite anything, or he loves you, or he will love you in the future. He loves you now as you, as your whole person. And so I don't know if that's the message I can send. Like, God loves you. You have a reason to be happy. Just be true to whatever part of yourself you want to be true to. And if you have to set some things aside, then you have to set some things aside. But that's kind of where faith comes in. And there's a plan for all of us. And we can live it, and we can be happy, and we know the way to be happy. And I think that's kind of the most important thing. And then just as sort of a side note, I think the people that I'm always most nervous to tell are my straight male friends, because I think that those are the relationships where this could have the most impact, or most effect. And so I think it's important for anybody who is a straight male who has a friend that happens to be gay. It's important to understand that if they're telling you, it's not because they are hitting on you or something. It's just that they want that deeper connection and that level of friendship, and they trust you. And so it's important to. There are a couple of things that need to change, and there are a couple of things that need to stay the same. In terms of what needs to change, you just need to acknowledge, give them a hug, and just be like, thank you so much for sharing that with me. And then realize that it's okay to have normal conversations with them. That's what needs to stay the same. Your friendship shouldn't change. Now, I know sort of the biggest question going forward, at least for me, is the marriage question. I have quite a few friends and even my uncle that I mentioned who have got married and have successful families, and they're very happy. I happen to suck at dating girls. I'm completely clueless. And so but unless it lands in my lap, I don't know if it's going to happen. I would love to get married and have a family. I think that would be awesome. A lot of the mixed orientation marriages that I know about are actually more successful than some of the straight marriages that I know about. And so it just gives me a lot of hope for that being a possibility. And I've always felt like I would get married and have a family, and I would love that. And if that happens, that's great. If not, I'm at a really good place. I'm very happy. I live a very fulfilling life. I have great friends, and if that's all I ever have, then that's perfect. And I can live with that and be happy, and know that I can contribute to society, and I can be an awesome uncle, and I can be happy, and I can have a good, fulfilling life. And if that's what the Lord has in store, that's great. So that's kind of what I hope for. But I know that regardless of what happens, as long as I have a firm testimony and I keep that strong and I do what I'm supposed to be doing, then life's going to be great regardless.